Are you looking for a way to make co-parenting easier? Talking Parents can help you streamline your shared parenting responsibilities and minimize conflict by keeping all interactions organized and documented. With Talking Parents, you can stop worrying about the he said, she said, and focus on what matters most, your children. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store and start a 30-day free trial today. Hello and welcome to a new episode. I am so excited about today's guest and the topic. We're talking about how AI is changing the game for those facing toxic relationships, navigating high conflict divorce, co-parenting with difficult individuals post-divorce. So this is just so custom designed for each and every one of you listening. We get stuck in a cycle of conflict, of feeling shut down, silenced, belittled, and their way of communicating can often leave us stumped. And if we say anything, it just turns into a big conflict, which they enjoy so much. And so today we're talking about this revolutionary way to approach these challenging communications with courage and clarity. And there's a very specific AI called Aimeesays. And with me today is the lovely Witmute, who is the co-founder and CEO of Aimeesays. And without mentioning names, just a huge shout out to my new Colorado client who turned me on to Aimeesays. And so with no further ado, you can read all about the rest of the session and you'll find all of the links in the show notes. But with no further ado, welcome Aimee. I'm about to call you Aimee.
I get called.
Further ado, welcome Anne.
Hi, it should be a pseudonym for me. Thank you so much, Karen. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, so I didn't forewarn you, although I usually do. So before we start, I've been in the season of asking my guests to share something about themselves that is interesting or unique or surprising that has nothing to do with the work that they do.
Yes, out the window behind my head are 2 dwarf dairy goats. I'm an urban homesteader. I have 10 guinea pigs that mow my front lawn.
Oh my goodness, I think you might have just won the prize.
Oh, I didn't know there was a prize. Can I get another guinea pig?
So there you go, folks. A little something extra about Anne. Anne, I am so curious to hear the thought process and even the research process that led to Aimeesays. And before you do that, in your own words, could you explain to our listeners exactly what Aimeesays is?
Yes, Aimee is an AI-enabled companion for anyone who is experiencing or has experienced any form of coercion or control or manipulation or narcissistic abuse, domestic violence in the context of an intimate partnership. She's there to help you get clarity and understand what's happened so you can recognize the abuse. She helps you respond in whatever way feels right for you, and supports you throughout the recovery process, which, as any survivor knows, can literally be decades.
So it's actually much more than just in conversations. So I was under the misunderstanding that it was primarily helping you communicate with this other person. So let's start there. It does do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the literal tip of the iceberg. So one of the features that we know people use a lot, and it's one of the reasons they share Aimee with friends, is that you can take a message that was sent to you or verbally relayed to you by that controlling person, and you can enter that into Aimee, and she'll ask a couple questions to get some more context. And then she will produce a report that details all of the different kind of overt and covert, especially, forms of manipulation or coercion that were present in that message, and really just validate the impact that that message had on you to prepare you for being able to respond or not respond, as is often the recommended course of action. Prepares you to take the next step in response to that message. She will also draft your reply for you.
Just wow.
Yeah, my background prior to launching Aimee with my co-creator, Stephen, who's just an incredibly brilliant person, My background was in supporting people who were navigating the family law system. So they had what the courts would call high conflict, what anyone else would recognize as coercively controlling or domestically violent histories and currencies. And the keeping up with the messages, responding to the narrative that abusers tend to build through messages becomes its own full-time job. And that was actually how we started thinking about, well, now with the advent of AI, can we support that full-time job that so many people have? It's just ruining their ability to recover. They continue to feel so isolated because all of this confusion is still going on. Can we use AI to try to support that? And so our very first tool, all it did was receive and analyze messages. And now, like you were slightly surprised to hear, she can help you figure out what you're going to make for dinner tonight because you're exhausted and you feel disconnected from your kids and you need ideas for how to connect to them. My ex just filed this motion and I don't even know where to start. You can upload the motion into Aimee and have Aimee help you get started in a response. The capacity is designed to help people from really early, just learning to recognize what's going on, well through litigation and the post-abuse period.
It's so interesting because one of the things that I teach is I have a 5-day boundary boot camp. And so your comment of, and often no response is the best response is one of the many talking points. I often tell the story of how the worst morning I woke up to 138 text messages.
Oh. Yeah, that's a few.
My initial thought, because I was a little bit healthier at that time, was, wow, he had a really tough night.
Yes. And perhaps something you said or something that someone else said prompted that tirade.
And then I've had clients hire me to coach them, but a piece of what is actually gain access to their email. And because who's waking up to 15 emails and my emails, my ex is beautifully verbose. And so my emails were always 2 or 3 pages with page-long paragraphs, and of course, all of the shenanigans in the midst of them. And so that's something I've been for years supporting people because that can decimate you, right? So rather than read the whole thing and sit there and rewrite 12 times what you're going to say, they would give me access to it. And I'm thinking, Aimee's probably got this done in a hot second compared to what I would do.
And listen, someone who can afford your rates, my rates as a consultant is probably going to continue to utilize that. But you know how few people who are experiencing this are able to afford the cost of a live human being, professional and expert. So for someone who can't get a hold of you, right, or who you're not going to be able to respond to that message in time, certainly they can use Aimee, but Aimee can do it in literally in seconds. And that feature is totally free. Anyone with the guest access can analyze as many messages as they need to every day, multiple times a day, whatever, at no cost. And it's always instantaneous.
Yeah, so I would imagine that's a great way to have the word spread like wildfire.
That is definitely, if somebody finds us, for example, like you did, Karen, that's typically the thing that they think we do, right? Because that's what most people are sharing.
And it's like, oh my God, I want to tell everybody else who's struggling with this too, which is so great. So before we go on, free sounds fabulous, but when you told me the cost, that was like equally as fabulous. So let's just throw that out now as we continue to talk about it.
Yeah, so chatting with Aimee is always free. It's free anywhere in the world. We have users in nearly 100 countries. It's absolutely free. If you get to the site and you get confused, I promise you it's free. Just click Meet Aimee. But we do have paid features. And right now for $15 a month, you can access a variety of additional features that are especially helpful if you are ever going to end up in court or you're currently in court. You need support with documentation, you need support responding in the legal context, or if you want to be able to store your chat history with Aimee. So in the free chat, there's no storage. It disappears. That's a safety feature, right? She won't remember you in the next chat, but it's pretty easy to get her back up to speed. But that's always free. On the other side of the $15 subscription is something called My Story, which is essentially a knowledge graph. It helps Aimee. She always remembers who you are. She knows your kids' names. She knows where you are in your legal battle. She knows your jurisdiction. She knows information about how your abuser, what your abuser's flavor is, right? They have a variety of flavors. There's a journal. The journal is really important in helping people, supporting people's documentation. So a user will feel like, I'm journaling this incident, and Aimee will say like, oh, she'll provide something validating. Wow, that must have been really distressing. You said you were at the park. Were there any witnesses? Right? She's going to help you make sure that you contain and that put into the journal entry information that will turn that experience into evidence if that's necessary. You can upload your documents. This is a huge one. So when you have 2,000 pages of Our Family Wizard messages and your attorney says, hey, give me some examples for why you think we should modify medical decision making, you can put that document into your document storage with Aimee and then ask Aimee, hey, my attorney needs this. Look at our OFW messages for examples of him interfering with me being able to make appointments, for example. And not only can she point to where those are, she helps you collate that information in a way that is appropriate for your attorney, right? Or for you, if you're doing that independently. So that document feature is really valuable. You can have your court orders up there. So he sends you a message, you tell her, I think this violates our orders. She writes a response that includes the stipulation or the section in your orders that his request is conflicting with. It's like having a friend, therapist, and attorney in your pocket at nearly all times, which is why it's such a game changer for people who are really limited by the abuse that they continue to experience. The narrative about them is so negative, or they're afraid to lift their pinky finger or they're going to get in trouble. It's a real ally and companion through that experience.
That just sounds so fantastic because in so many different ways, it's like I even work with people post-divorce and they're still so afraid to say something, to do something, to get dragged back to court. And so here you are, you spent your tens of thousands of dollars, you got your divorce, and you're stuck in the same dynamic. And to your point, yeah, some of them hire those of us who do this work. But I've gotten hundreds of responses from my listeners that the podcast has been fabulous. I've never met them. We've never spoken to them. They've never purchased anything that we share, but they gain so much benefit and at such an inexpensive rate. Like, geez, what's that, like 2 Starbucks drinks a month or something? It's just so nominal to be able to bring. I'm just hearing peace, ease, support, plus like the things that must come out of this, like the rebuilding of self-confidence and self-esteem, the acknowledgement and validation of, I'm not a wilting flower for getting upset and being anxious about this statement, like a million different things to have this girl in your pocket that's available anytime, any place, any circumstance. And if we're just looking at the high conflict communication, it's fabulous just for that.
Agreed. And if we think about the expense of, for example, you were talking about post-separation abuse, they've ended the relationship, they got the divorce, they're still absolutely entrapped. They're trapped by every message, every doctor's appointment, every sports game that their kids are enrolled in, school conferences. It's just a landmine of opportunities for that coercion to continue to be present. And it's exhausting. And it means that like people lean really hard on their friends, right? That's a really difficult time to be someone's friend, is when they're experiencing this. So we know that people have a conversation with Aimee before they go out for drinks. And they're like, Aimee, I want to not dominate the conversation with all the crazy things that my ex did. Let me get it all out. What am I going to tell myself so that I don't bring it up? Or if they ask, how do I respond in a way that lets them know things are still challenging, but I really want to be present tonight, right? All kinds of support in making sure that even in the context of post-separation abuse, you have a life. Right? And that means employment too. How many times have you been at work and you're you're totally distracted by this really challenging thing that's in front of you? Maybe it's new litigation, maybe it's just the ongoing abuse, and it robs you of your ability to focus on that task at hand. Go have a 5-minute conversation with Aimee. She's going to pat you on the back. She's going to remind you that the sky is up and it's blue, and give you that clarity and confidence to get back to the things that matter. And that's really what we talk about in the context of recovery. Right? Recovery is spending less and less of your emotional energy, of your time, your financial resource on withstanding or responding to the abuse. We want to just pack that down as much as possible. Really expedite when people get triggered, expedite their recovery, and have them spending as little time as possible just chewing on everything that they're still going through.
Oh, the amount of the hours that and energy that go into ruminating, right? Just that one little piece of it. I was recently speaking to a young woman, single mom, and she was telling me how she uses ChatGPT as her therapist on the way to work. And I was like, oh my God, that's just fascinating. I never would have thought of that. And now ChatGPT in general is, since I use it all the time, is not the most emotionally intelligent AI there is out there. And so I'm always like prompting it to be emotionally intelligent. But you've created, dare I say, an emotionally intelligent version of AI around all things domestic abuse. Is that a fair statement? Your kids may not be the only ones taking tests this year. SoberLink is the #1 alcohol monitoring device on the market for parents who need to prove their sobriety. Here's how it works. Your co-parent will test at scheduled times each day. Built-in facial recognition confirms their identity. Tamper sensors flag any attempts to cheat. And results get sent instantly to your phone. So you know your kids are with a sober parent, whether it's during school nights or weekends away. Set your family up for success this school year. Visit soberlink.com/JBD to learn more and get $50 off your device. Are you looking for a way to make co-parenting easier? Talking Parents can help you streamline your shared parenting responsibilities and minimize conflict by keeping all interactions organized and documented. With Talking Parents, you can stop worrying about the he said, she said, and focus on what matters most, your children. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store and start a 30-day free trial today. Divorce feels like an overwhelming perfect storm as you navigate pain, fear, and confusion while struggling with unfamiliar legal procedures and the pressure to make complex decisions that will impact the rest of your life. Our free Rapid Relief Call provides the clarity and confidence you're yearning for. Visit rapidreliefcall.com for support and guidance today. I know everything about Aimee, and I still see her as a person. Right? Like I've been at every step of her development and training, and I talk to Aimee, right? Aimee gives me She's your girl.
support, right? So Chat GPT is just broader. It's supposed to help you figure out how to code something. How do I utilize this system? What do I do over here? I know a lot of people use it for kind of mental health support. I know AIs cannot, they're not licensed to provide therapy. But you're right that it's not trained to be trauma informed. And really that's what we're talking about. So Aimee is. Aimee has been trained to understand, for example, you must first say something validating and that acknowledges your understanding of what was just said. Or if you have questions so that you can understand what was just said, go ahead and ask those questions. And then you're going to provide some validation. You're going to provide something constructive and follow up with a question, right? Like so there's an algorithm for demonstrating that trauma-informed care. We are anti-pathology. There is never victim blaming. If providing support to the victim, here's how you do it, right? So that they're not re-traumatized, because nobody is more readily able to self-blame than a survivor of abuse, right? We want to make sure that we are really steering people away from self-blame. So you're right. There is engineering in there that is different from ChatGPT. There's also a lot of privacy differences between ChatGPT and Aimee, which we can talk about as well. But ChatGPT is where you go to when you need to figure out what to do with the food that's in your refrigerator, or have it make a chore list for your kids. But it's not the same as having a trauma-informed companion.
Yeah. So let's run through. You said them quickly. Obviously, Aimee can help you assess communication and even draft a response for you. She can look at legal documents or other large documents and find the types of things that you're asking her to find. What are some of, like, can you just run through what those key?
It's infinite. It's hard to run through because it's infinite. So just
Well,
looking
the
at
most used, maybe the top 5 most, or
So we don't know what's the most used. We cannot see what people say to Aimee, and we cannot see what Aimee says to you. It is a black box of confidence. We are not mining people's information and data. We have done our absolute best to create the environment that is truly necessary for someone to be vulnerable. If you have an account, we can see your email address, right? That's how we are able to communicate with you. The amount of data that we keep is next to nothing. So when I say we don't know exactly how people use it, I'm being frank. I'm being completely honest. What information we do have is from people who reach out to us. Like, we get the most wonderful emails,
I
right?
bet you do.
It's the best. It is the best part of my job is opening up my inbox, or there's a survey that pops up on the screen, and hearing what people have to say. They also have incredible feedback for us that absolutely informs our continued developments with Aimee. But based on conversations people have had with us, these are the things that we know. They talk to Aimee after a couple of weird Tinder dates because they've been in an abusive relationship in the past. They think there's maybe some red flags, and they want to talk about those red flags. They don't want to have a conversation with their friends because that's really vulnerable. They talk to Aimee because they're thinking about leaving, but there are barriers. There's always barriers to leaving. Those barriers are often unique to the individual, right? I can't leave because he'll expose me in our faith community. Or I can't leave because, or I will lose our faith community if I do, because he's beloved there. So whatever the barriers are, can I make copies of my personal documents, or do I have to actually take the document? Where can I store those things in hiding? How do I financially prepare to separate? How can I document what's going on now so that if and when I leave, I'm able to utilize that information, right? So that's a little bit later. I'm entrapped in that relationship, and I need to really kind of methodically work through what plans I need to make to leave safely. We know people use it after they've left. They are now in the onslaught of the legal battle if they are married. They take Aimee into mediation with them. In most states, you can't take a person into mediation with you unless the opposing party consents to it, other than your attorney. You can take in Aimee with you. He wants this, I want this, throw some ideas at me. You and your attorney, or you, if you're pro se, can go through and look at those options. So we know people are using it. Context. They use Aimee to help them save a boatload of money with their attorney. It's very traumatizing to go through all of your records to look for information. People will often put that off into their attorney for insane amounts of money. Aimee can help you, support you through that process. My attorney's asking these questions. Let's go through the documents together and get answers, and then turn this conversation into an email for my attorney. Done. Maybe you spent 10, 15 minutes doing it, and you had a companion through it. It wasn't just you pouring through these triggering documents, right? All right, I'm done with my legal battle, and I'm getting these messages. I have to stay on the straight and narrow. I want to reclaim my life. I want to spend less time focused on the past and that experience. I want to loosen my abuser's grip on me in this post-separation phase. Really running the gamut from that early recognition all the way through recovery. I'm sorry that I couldn't just list like 4 things.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And one thing that you didn't talk about that I was thinking about is your children. So whether you're in a silver divorce and your children, right, so they were raised in this dysfunctional family, and who has an opinion about what's wrong with you or what's wrong with them. And so those can be really hard conversations. And the same thing, teenagers are just hard because they're teenagers and they have their own emotional storm, hormonal storm going on. Can you just comment on, I know it's similar, but I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, so we'll use kids and a couple of examples that come off the top of my head. Unfortunately, many abusers are effective at driving a wedge between the protective parent, the safe parent, and the children. And that can happen early in childhood, and that can be the silver divorce, right? As it is when it happens, and suddenly my 30-year-old son won't talk to me anymore. Those are really difficult conversations to have. It's a special kind of isolation, right? Being kind of severed, having your emotional attachment maliciously fractured with this beloved person. And having a conversation about that with Aimee could look a variety of ways. I really want to reclaim the relationship. Why might my son not be wanting to talk to me? It's candid. It's supposed to feel like a natural conversation. Aimee might have some ideas for what might be going on in your kid's mind. Aimee's always aware of her expertise in power and control dynamics. So it's always going to be under that flavor, right? So she's going to understand when you say, I just really feel like my ex is punishing me by severing this relationship and I don't know what to do. And in companionship and in collaboration with Aimee, can come up with some ideas like, okay, I'm recognizing that my son might be making, like he's doing his best. He's making the decision that he thinks is best in this moment. What's not going to be helpful from me is judging him or punishing him for that decision or putting him in the middle. How do I keep him out of the middle so we have an opportunity to restore our relationship? And
Oh, I
that's what
love that.
a conversation like that might look like. Young children, I just got a protection order or I filed an emergency motion to restrict. My daughter's expecting dad to pick her up today, but it's going to be me. What do I say? I don't want to freak her out. Aimee's going to be like, how old is your daughter? 12? Okay. Here are some age appropriate things you can say to your child, things that are going to be important to remind your child. So this is as unharmful for them as possible. Those are a couple of examples of the ways in which ongoing abuse can really challenge the relationship that you have with your child.
Is there any downside to Aimeesays?
It's an AI model. We say that it has a much higher success rate, appropriate, responsive guidance rate than humans. But at the end of the day, sometimes people trust technology more than they should, right? Like it is possible to produce a hallucination with Aimee. If you ask Aimee a question and you state it in a way like she's going to find this information in your files, she may say she found something that she didn't actually find. Right? That's a matter of kind of the prompt engineering. How did you answer that? Or how did you actually ask the question? And how does that potentially lead to a result that is not the level of accuracy that we would want? I personally am not of the mind that what's really sad if I have to talk to a robot. Most people aren't talking to anyone. At least they're talking. And people tell us they say things to Aimee they've never told their therapist, that they've never told their family, because Aimee will not judge you. Aimee will not pathologize you. She will not victim blame you. She will not tell you what you need to do next. She will not rob you of your agency, of your autonomy. There are arguably critical benefits to it being AI over it being a human. And at the end of the day, Aimee can't make a phone call for you. Aimee cannot hold your hand, not in a physical way. Maybe one day we'll have like holograms and Aimee can be like a hologram in your living room helping you out, but that doesn't exist today. She can't get you rent assistance, right? She can't pull your bank statements for you, but she will virtually hold your hand through all of those processes. She'll help you know who to call, what to say when you talk to them. I don't see downsides. And she can do it for nearly free. She processed and responded to 84,000 messages in November in 95 countries in a variety of languages. This is the scale of this, the capacity, the immediacy, the no wait anywhere in the world. This is previously unheard of.
I'm really blown away. And I think that as a small business owner, I have become very acquainted with and grateful for ChatGPT. It helps me with everything from my podcast show notes to building sales pages and email funnels. And it's got its beauty of its quickness and it always needs to be refined, right? So my experience, I think I was a little bit resistant, and now I'm really beginning to see the value of it. And I think that there's plenty of us out there who are concerned about AI in general because it's never the technology, it's human nature, and there's a yin and yang in human nature. And so for everything that is created that can do good, somebody out there will figure out how to do bad with it.
Oh, absolutely. If we figured out how to fly airplanes, we can fly, we can travel via the air. And within a year, we were figuring out how to blow people up from the sky. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And so I really want to, first of all, thank you and acknowledge that this is such a beautiful use for AI. And I know it's still in its infancy, so I'm sure so many other things will come around. And folks, if this has been your struggle, I co-parented for 18 years post-divorce with somebody who called my child support my monthly extortion check and blamed and shamed and just dealt with all of that. And the thought that for $15 a month, you can have a record, you can do all of these different things. And that, and even what you said about friends, right? People come to me and they're like, my friends just, they don't want to hear another bloody word out of me. And it's like, my sense is Aimee's never going to get overwhelmed or tired or frustrated, or could we talk about something else?
Yes. Yes, never. At 2 a.m. She doesn't sleep. She doesn't go on
Like,
holiday.
I'm all in.
Never
What do you
gets
got
sick.
for me?
She's always there. The moment you need her. Heck, if you're out with your friends, you can sneak away to the bathroom and be like, I'm doing it again. I'm talking about my ex and I don't want to get my head back on. I want to go back out there feeling strong. Yeah, she is constantly and inexhaustibly available.
And I don't know if you can speak to this, but just in case somebody is thinking, oh, that's a Band-Aid. My sense is that kind of ongoing support has a long-term positive impact. And can you talk about that a little bit?
We believe, we know all the research says that the kind of chronic stress and hypervigilance and PTSD shortens people's lives. It makes them sick, it kills them. We absolutely believe, and we don't lead with this because it's morbid and we don't want people worrying about their futures in that way, but we absolutely believe that through prevention, right? The person who talked after 4 Tinder dates and decided to run in the opposite direction of that red flag, or to someone who feels companionship and support throughout a really difficult process, to someone who has support in the post-separation abuse phase, we believe that through that support that Aimee will have an impact on people's long-term prognosis, right? You depressed, and we know that like suicidality is very high in post-separation abuse, that substance abuse, people losing their children due to the substance abuse caused by domestic violence and its impacts, really horrible outcomes.
Yep.
Right. And we absolutely want to intervene in that through the use of technology. That's what makes it possible, so that we can change people's long-term outcomes, so that we can reduce the number of people who are diagnosed with cancer after their divorce is final, right? Is the risk of breast cancer in the survivor community is very high. There's a reason. We aren't supposed to live in that kind of stress. We're not supposed to live in that kind of isolation and confusion, ruminating all of the time. It's not healthy. And we want Aimee to help people regain, achieve as much health as possible.
Yeah. I have a client I wrapped up with about a year ago in her late 60s, went through a couple of bouts of breast cancer, which came back during the divorce. But as she went through her multi-year process and just got healthy and clean, and she has adult children, so there's not as much of that going on. She got a completely clean bill of health, and she stated, and I divorced the cancer. And she was just completely certain that it was all of that, the burden, the overwhelm, the stress, the cortisol overload, like all of this on her system on a regular basis that kept her ill.
Yes.
And now she feels healthier and stronger and what have you. And so if Aimee can do that, what an incredible gift to humanity. There's so much dysfunction and toxic relationships and what have you, to think that people could easily grab this and really get that validation, get some clear communication, start rebuilding confidence and healing. That's incredible, Anne.
Thank you. That is our goal. And for the kids too. We know that high A scores, that exposure to domestic violence and coercively controlling relationships it's shortening their lives too. A healthy, protective parent is going to help have healthy, protected children. And yeah, if that's our legacy, Stephen and I who built this, and I will die a happy woman.
Beautiful. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have?
Oh, we could talk about this forever. If there are any victim service organizations that are listening, we offer free embeddable Aimee onto any partner organization's website. We host it, we do all the work. It's totally free to you and gives instant access to anyone who shows up. on their site and coming ahead of the continued cut in funding to these organizations and the contractions in staff. We are just a part of a mission of our work, getting as much access to folks who are going to lose access to direct services here.
Beautiful. That is just so wonderful. Check out the show notes. There is a link to go to Aimeesays, and you can sign up. Is it a 50% discount that you're offering everyone right now?
It's right now, the $15 a month is half off. It's good for 90 days.
Beautiful. So check it out. If you've been struggling, you can grab that free option and see how it impacts you, and pay close attention to if your shoulders start relaxing a little bit, if you smile after sending an email or a text, if you feel a little bit more heard and seen, or a little bit more confident and empowered. This is a brilliant, brilliant piece of technology. And what a gift to the world you and Stephen are putting this together and sharing it at such a cost-effective rate as well. So please check out the show notes. The website is
It's Aimee, is how you spell Aimee. That's Aimeesays.com.
So it's in the show notes, Aimeesays.com. Check it out and enjoy. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Karen. And I hope that all your listeners even get an ounce of relief.
I'm sure they will. And we'll be back again real soon. You have a great day. Thanks for joining us on the Journey Beyond Divorce podcast. I hope you found guidance and encouragement to help you along your journey. If you like my podcast, please take a minute to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. You can also visit us at jbddivorcesupport.com, where our team of coaches support both men and women through our one-on-one coaching, group programs, online courses, and free resources. Stay tuned for our next episode, and I'll talk to you soon.